30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and young guns Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in on a Monday afternoon that is full of bright sunshine, but also full of, a lot of sadness in the Nashville, Tennessee area. If you're watching this live, you may know about a shooting at the Covenant School in the Green Hills area. 3 young people killed, 3 adults killed. The shooter, a 28-year-old female, has also been killed. And, most of the time, what we do for a living is the toy department of life. And today it doesn't really feel like it. Now, we're going to talk sports. We may cut this show a tad bit shorter than normal. But, gosh, what a stunning turn of events. It hit me a few minutes ago. I had driven in that area right around the time this all went down. And it's just unthinkable. But the problem is it has become commonplace in our country. And we, as the United States of America, we have got to find an answer to put a stop to this stuff. With that in mind, let's head up to Cookeville, up on the plateau. Say hello to Coach Watson Brown. Watson, I'm assuming you know a little bit about this as well.
Yeah.
It's just unspeakable.
Yeah, it's so sad, Georgia. It's hard to talk about it because you just don't even want to acknowledge it. But we've just lost children, workers in the school. I found out through friends that notified me, and one of our former players is teaching, I guess, in that school.
Yeah,
and he's okay, but that's just devastating. I don't understand this. Just don't understand it. How you walk in and kill children? I just don't get it. Just don't know, George. We've got to figure something out.
Yeah.
And it's happening more and more in all parts of the country. And something's got to give here.
At times, I feel like we get numb to it until it hits in our own backyard. And then there's anything but, there's a numbness about this, but still, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got to do something.
No, we got to do something. And you always think, well, it won't happen where we are. Well, yes, it will. It's same as these tornado victim folks in Amory, Mississippi, and Rock. I think it's Rolling Hill is the name of it. Didn't know. I knew Amory. I've been in and out of Amory a lot in my 2 years in Mississippi. So it's just I don't know. It's tough, and all we can do is just pray, hope everybody prays for these families, George, and they can have some help with prayer. I just don't understand it, and maybe we'll learn more. But how does a young lady walk in and just kill children like that? I don't get it. And we've all been in and out of that area a bunch. You and I have. We've been all around that area all of our lives.
Oh, sure,
all of our lives, and. Think that you would be a parent and get the call from the school that you just lost a child. God, I can't
even imagine.
Can't even imagine it, George. Mm-hmm. Can't even don't want to try to imagine that. So it's just my prayers are those people, and so sad.
And the same here for all of us involved in the show. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families who have been affected, to the Covenant School. I don't really know what else to say other than as I watch to my left on the television, this is just devastating to see.
It's if you're watching I was watching the police chief before we came on, the sadness in his eyes, and let's just hope they can find a way to get through it, and the good Lord will help them get through it. But it's never going to be forgotten. We also got to think about those children there that, thank goodness, didn't get shot, but yet got to deal with this, George, the rest of their lives. That's a devastating thing if I worked in that school, it'd be devastating for me and my family. Can you imagine a fourth grader, third grader, fifth grader, whatever, dealing with that? God,
I can't.
I can't even fathom it.
You know, Watson, you and I grew up in an era where we never had to think about police protection at a school. The thought of a policeman having to be, for me, let's say, in the lobby of Battleground Academy, where I went. I mean, I can't imagine it. The thought of that going on at BGA when I was in school there. I just can't even fathom that. And yet now in a lot of schools, public, private, whatever, that's what's having to go on.
No,
it's really a shame.
It's the norm, not the exception.
Right.
It's the norm in all these schools. George, I'm growing up, I might leave at 10 in the morning, Mac and I or something on our bikes. Mother wouldn't see us till dark. We're all over town doing whatever. There were no phones. I mean, but you just trusted because everything was okay. And now, gosh, people are, if you don't know where your child is or hadn't heard from them in a couple of hours or something, if they're not in school and being helped by other people, you wonder, you get nervous about it.
Sure you do.
So it's a different world. Gosh, high schools everywhere now, you go through detectors as you go into the schools. And I did that forever. We're recruiting, and it's been a while, though. There's been detectors in a lot of these schools for a long while now. And I don't know. It's sad. Our world has got to look in a mirror and get a hold of itself some way here. And we got to get this kind of stuff stopped. The rhetoric, the attitudes toward each other. There's just a lot of stuff that needs to be straightened out here. And let's all take a deep breath and realize we live in the greatest place on earth, and we need to take better care of it than we do.
Amen.
All I can think about is the church hymn, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." And, it just feels like that's hard right now. And, it shouldn't be. So all you can do is pray right now. And that's what we'll be doing, for the families and children involved. And there'll be more that we'll find out. So
well, you were telling me about your school, Father Ryan.
Yep. Father Ryan's not far. My brother texted me. He said, we're on code red lockdown. I'm sure other schools around the area, were as well. Hillsboro, I think, right over there. There's a lot of people in that area. There's a lot of schools in that area. It's tough. It's hard to talk about.
Yeah. Hillsboro High School is a good baseball throw.
Yeah.
From
right up the road from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's awful. Tough day to talk sports. I told David before we got on, but we had a lot of good basketball over the weekend. The Final Four is set. UConn dominated Gonzaga in the Elite Eight. FAU knocked off K-State. Miami upended Texas, and San Diego State beats Creighton. So many storylines with so many of these teams. For FAU, George, they didn't have a basketball program until the late 80s, and they've only made one tournament before 2023. So they're in the Final Four. Jim Larrañaga has now taken two teams to their only Final Fours in program history, and San Diego State is headed to the Final Four for the first time ever. So crazy list of teams in the Final Four. Last year, it was all blue bloods. This year, FAU, San Diego State, Miami, and UConn. So I don't know that you could predict anything that's happened so far.
Watson, I've come to the conclusion that this guy, Jim Larrañaga, I remember first, him coming on the scene at George Mason and taking that school in 2006 to a Final Four. This guy must be a pretty darn good basketball coach.
Well, he's proven to be, and he's 73 years old. He's my age, and he's done a great job. It's fun to watch his team play. I love what he said after the game that he got from somebody else. That was a philosophy I've used forever. And his comment was, I was taught at a younger age, train them hard and let them play and get out of the way and trust them. He said, train them and trust them. That was his 2 words. And I've always believed that. Excuse me. And that's what you see his teams play. They're loose as they can be.
They're pretty good. I had brought them up earlier, I don't know, several weeks ago when something came up about a dark horse. I had seen them take Duke behind the woodshed on a Monday night in Miami, beat Duke by over 20. And I remember thinking, wow, there's some athleticism here that is amazing. And you're right. They have played loose as a goose, and more power.
They got down 13. It didn't phase them.
Yeah.
It did not. It didn't phase anybody. You could see the coach on the sidelines. Nobody was panicking. Absolutely didn't phase them. And 2 very strong points, George. Just make it here, and then we'll talk it later, I'm sure. But number one, this is the most physical tournament I've ever seen. The physicality in this tournament is the most I've ever seen in an NCAA tournament. The officials have flat let them go, and then they have the
And
foul.
I'm not sure that's a good thing.
I'm not either. But do you feel that way? I do. It's the most physical tournament, game in and game out. And then the foul they called at the end of the game in the Creighton game after all this physicality. That's the first comment. The second comment, there is one Power 5 school in the Final Four. You've got basically 3 group of 5s: Connecticut, FAU, and who's the third one?
Miami.
Miami's the Power 5.
San Diego State.
San Diego State, FAU. These are group of 5 schools. Connecticut is a Power 5 basketball, but they're a group of 5 football. And then look at the NIT. 3 group of 5s and 1 Power 5s. I'm not sure how much this money that all these Power 5 schools are pulling in through football is showing in basketball, George. And then the 1 Power 5 that's there's been a lot of talk about the NIL money spent on their kids. So transfer portal may be showing up big here. NIL may be showing up big here as everything in college athletics starts to change. That was the 2 big things that I saw. NIT, 3 group of 5s and 1 Power 5. Wisconsin's there. I think it's North Texas, Utah Valley, and UAB. So here you got the 2 big tournaments and only 1 Power 5 in each one of them.
We're going to show the play in a little while at the end of the San Diego State Creighton game. So let me just go around the room. We got time to, I guess?
Yeah.
Watson, let me start with you. Do you agree with the call at the end?
I think the call is right, but it hadn't been called the whole game. So I don't think it's right.
Billy?
The call was right. It is a foul by the way they have to officiate a game, but they hadn't called it the whole game. There had been 22 fouls called in that game. In most games through the term is up about 40. So you got less the fouls. The game is tough and physical as it can be for both sides. And then here you call this at the end of the game. It was a foul, but it hadn't been called a foul. And George, football, take football. I've always said football. You want to know immediately for your players, how are they calling pass interference and how are they calling holding? That's the 2 biggies. How are they calling shooting fouls and driving fouls, and how are they calling check fouls? You got to know that, and then that's how you play the rest of the game. I don't think it was fair to Creighton what went down, but it went down. And anybody that says that it wasn't a foul, no, I think it was a foul, but it hadn't been called the whole game.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where if it's a no call, San Diego State's going to be all up in arms. If it's a foul, you're going to have Creighton all up in arms. It's just that type of situation in the moment. You know, I feel like that was a call that most refs make, but you've also seen it not called. You know, I mean, we've seen that call not be made.
You saw it in that game not called.
Right.
There was a very physical, people laying on the floor everywhere. they'd show a play back and a guy's arm's getting wore out from somebody slapping at it or whatever. And now this, when he did put his hand on his hip and it looked like his body did move a little bit. So he did make the shot be a little off balance. I credit the official for calling it, but I don't credit the officials for consistency throughout that game.
Yeah, David and I were talking earlier. He brought up the fact that it's easy for us after the 3 to 4 replay reviews to look back and say, "Oh, yep, he grabbed him. He fouled him, or he didn't." But in the moment, that ref has to make a quick judgment call, and you've got to live with it. So
do you agree with the call or disagree?
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to say I agree or disagree, but I thought there was a foul there to be called, and he called it. I'm with Watson, but you've also seen it in that game where they let it go. So it's like they change their tune sometimes with about a minute left. But I mean, David over here, he's been an official. I mean, he's refereed high school games. He's got a perspective as well.
You coming to me?
Yeah.
I think the key in this scenario is that it's an airborne shooter. So you have to protect the airborne shooter, any contact to the shooter, him going to the ground, any contact up top. It was a foul, in my opinion. It's just, I was interested to see what he went to the table and signaled. Because if he calls a push or a hand check, that will be correct. But there was no hit up top. So, but just protecting the airborne shooter, he has the right up and down back to the floor. I think he got nudged a little bit, tugged on the jersey on the side, and that was the difference. I thought it was a foul. And Gene Steratore did a good job of explaining on the broadcast how you got to protect an airborne shooter.
Billy, I know we got 2 or 3 other items. We'll mow through quick.
Yep, Rodney Terry is apparently going to stay in Texas, and so he will be the next head coach at Texas. A press conference is expected this week. And George, according to financial documents, he got a $50,000 per month increase in his salary through April. So I guess that was a sign that we didn't know of.
This was handled so stupidly. For the life of me, I don't get why an athletic director doesn't take advantage, if he's made the decision to keep him, to walk into that locker room ahead of time in one of the biggest games in school history and tell those players, I'm doing what y'all want. We're keeping him. I don't get it. I swear I don't.
Nope.
Anyway.
Then wait till they blow a 13-point lead and then offer him to him after the game.
Crazy.
I mean, I don't know. Again, it's an AD that looks like he doesn't understand morale, momentum, confidence, that he could have this week, sometime during the week before they even go to the Final Four, to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. Do it the day after they win the first game.
Right.
To gain some confidence and some momentum and some positiveness for the team. He didn't help them a lick. Yeah, it is.
Maybe that helps them. I mean, like you said, Watson, maybe if they decide to make a move or say something, maybe it helps the team. But
it would have helped the team. It would have been a major positive to the team for them to go ahead and have done that, if that's what they were going to do. And it's obvious it is, because they decided to give him it after they lost. So if anything, it got worse, not better. So it's obvious they'd already made up their mind to give him the job.
Blame the J.R. Ewing wannabes out at Texas.
Oh,
I can't blame them here.
Well, we got a George Jr. here calling them the J.R. wannabes.
Just give me the one last story.
Yep, Lamar Jackson has requested a trade. He said on Twitter, I requested a trade from the Ravens, for which the Ravens have not been interested in meeting my value. Any and everyone that has met me or been around me know I love the game of football, and my dream is to help a team win the Super Bowl. You'll see me again.
Yeah, maybe in a court. This story just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. After the break, Kerry Keating is going to join us, former head basketball coach at Santa Clara. But for people in this area, a unique experience. He's been an assistant at Vandy and an assistant at Tennessee under Buzz Peterson. Now, let's talk a little March Madness. There are something like 45 million of you who bet on this tournament. Today at Action 24/7, use the promo code GEORGE and get a 300% deposit match up to $20 on your first deposit. Action 24/7 is Tennessee's only locally owned and operated sports book. If you have questions, these are good folks who can help you. They're neighbors located right here in Tennessee. So download the app or visit action247.com to get started, and please bet responsibly.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from, and for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
We are back here on the show. This comes under the category of, I guess, the show must go on. I'm watching, as a lot of you probably are, the scene from Covenant School in the Nashville Green Hills area, where earlier today, 3 young kids, 3 adults, and the shooter were all killed. And we're going to talk some more about this later. Had no idea last night that something like this was coming. I asked a good friend, the former head coach at Santa Clara, and before that, an assistant both at Vandy and at Tennessee, Kerry Keating, to join us from the Raleigh area. Kerry, thank you for taking the time. I had not seen the glasses before.
Yeah, they're becoming a necessity now as you get older. You know, it's hard when you can't see the food you're eating. You better get the glasses on. It's not just about reading and near sight. So everyone succumbs to that, I guess. And as long as I can put off the LASIK, I don't mind wearing the glasses. It offsets the lack of hair I have now.
Oh my God!
But I will say, and I heard you guys earlier. There's a reason why I'm wearing this hat. I don't know how well versed we are in our minor league marches here. This is the Beloit Snappers. We used this hat when I was a little league coach in San Jose. We were the green team, and the kids and us chose the snappers because we can get the gear, obviously. But I wear it today, especially because it's a reminder for me as a coach coaching kids, and especially at that age and the age of those kids. And I drove by that school every day going home from work, George. As you may remember, I lived in Green Hills. I drove by that school. I know exactly where it's at, even all these years later. And in every way, we all have to kind of try to find a way to deal with this, especially someone who's raising young kids, and kids now are in 5th and 7th grade. And, it's every parent's nightmare. All I can do personally to try to deal with things like that, because it always hits home, especially when you're coaching kids, which is what I'm doing a lot more prevalently now that I'm out of college coaching, is just wear something that brings back, good memories of impact and kids that are intact and had a great season or two with them. And, just hope that source of positive energy can offer in some way, shape, or form some sort of help somewhere. And obviously having an opportunity to come on your show, especially someone back there locally, to know how much that we're thinking about the families, and even the families I think was mentioned prior of the kids now that have to go through this moving forward, and it's just such terrible, tragic news, especially in light of what's a great sports time of the year for us, obviously. I just hope that we can find ways to prevent this, especially as especially as I keep dealing with kids for what's probably going to be the rest of my life.
Kerry, I'm going to show right at the beginning the play at the end of the San Diego State Creighton game that has gotten so much discussion. And Billy, if you want to go ahead and roll that, here we go.
Might have gotten away with the travel there. Yeah. What's interesting to me is Mike Reed, who made this call. I think that's Mike Reed. It looks like Mike Reed's mannerism. I don't know if that was him or not. Nah, maybe he's not that big. I don't know if that was the best angle to make that call, but let me take this angle for you, George. There was I can't remember which coach it was.
Take a look at this one, Kerry.
Yeah, I just don't know how he makes that call with that angle. When I used to host coaches in the summertime at our team camps, we would bring the officials in from our league, not just to kind of develop relationships with them, but also to have them use it as a training ground. And I would actually go out there in the semifinals and finals of our team camp and referee the games with all those referees there and kind of learn a little bit. It's not easy to do. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a very, very difficult job. That being said, the anticipatory nature, no matter how much time is on the clock of the referee, to me, I wish would get answered in some sort of media pool because of the scrutiny that we're now under as an entity with instant replay, breakdown to the 10th of a second, even what happened after this with the stopwatch and they didn't start the clock on time. It just leaves too much to speculation as to the why. And here's the bigger issue. They're still independent contractors. There was I can't remember if it was Jim Harrick. Somebody used to call his players that when he was pissed about, you're all a bunch of independent contractors. Like these guys are still independent contractors and getting paid very well. A lot of them are doing it on a secondary march to their primary income. Some of them now have done it full time. They don't need to have a primary income. This is the primary income. And I just think we're getting to the point now, at least in the business, not college athletics, is now really getting to be a certifiable business. We'll go into all that, I'm sure, a little bit of detail and NIL and everything that comes with it. I think they're going to have to get to the point where there's a little bit more transparency from these officials as to the why, just to take out all the speculation and the back and forth. And maybe it'll help adjudicate the game moving forward. Maybe it'll help the coaches and the referees and be a little bit more of a healthy balance. I think there were 22 fouls in the game, and as physical as the game is going to be, and we certainly can go back to the Tennessee game with Duke. I mean, there's so many. It almost becomes inconsistently unwatchable, where there's no consistency in how the games are being called, and a lot of it has to do with what those referee crews are. And keep in mind too, as I'm sure you guys know, a lot of those referees are working together for the first time, and there's a little bit of bravado in there and trying to be the man and move on to the Final Four and have that and wear that badge. And you never know what charge they're under, but that's a difficult thing to ask guys to do, to have worked together for the first time in that level at the end of the season.
Kerry, I guess I grew up in an era where I saw a lot of what I will call swallowing the whistle late in the game, where a play would happen, somebody would get mangled, and it was just simply play on because officials didn't want to decide the game. In the coaching world, what has been the belief of coaches about a play like that late in a game?
Look, as coaches, you always go back to your players in moments of failure and one that stands out at the end of the game. It's so easy to go to the end of the game and say that was the reason. But you go back to the 80 or so possessions in the game, and the one thing you could have changed to get that back, or missed free throw in the beginning, a missed block out. And I think as far as the officials go, I always held this belief and tried to, in every game, my goal in the first 4 minutes as far as the officials were concerned was to figure out where they were at. Because I got to be honest with you, some of them are coming off back-to-backs. They got flights they're trying to get out, 3 hours after tip time. And when I was in Santa Clara, the airport was 5 minutes from campus. So it was easy to just drop the car and be one of the easiest rental car. This is how crazy it is. I lived in a place where the main airport was probably the easiest rental car drop off to gate in terms of time in the country. And if you don't think that I thought that had an effect on some of these guys after they did 2 or 3 games in a row to get back home, whether it was to LA or whether it was to San Diego or up to Seattle or over to Denver, you're kidding yourself, because it definitely was a factor.
Yeah.
And these guys are trying because they got to get home on their day off, or maybe they got to get to another game. Like what I wanted to know was what their schedule was. So I made sure that I treated our head of officials, who was at the time Dave Libby, under his own auspices and scrutiny as it was as an official, especially out west. A lot of guys weren't fond of him, but he was the director of officials. I just wanted their schedule to know where they were coming from and where they were going, and then what was their mindset, and had they had that team that I was playing prior to me playing them, especially in the conference, because then they're going to get a feel for the year-to-year changes and how that team may be playing. We would try to bring in as many as we could that were available in practice in October and have them officiate our practice, have them listen to how we're going to coach our team. So they would at least have a little bit of an idea, because it may change year to year. Not all of us were blessed to have the consistency in players and style that Mark Few had. So we had to make changes based on the personnel we had. We played differently almost every 2 or 3 years that I was at Santa Clara, because we had to. I wanted just to get a feel in the first 4 minutes. And to me, as long as I knew where it was in the first 4 minutes, I knew where it would be at the end of the game. Now, to wit, and this is Final Four related, I lost a home game, and technically a bye game, because we paid Wagner at the time to come to our tournament, which was the Cable Car Classic, albeit not a lot of money. Our officials, at the end of December, we already had these guys, let a guy catch a ball, go out of bounds, and shoot it over the backboard to beat us at the buzzer on an air ball rebound. And at that time, they didn't have the replay. But I had my camera guys, and I took it to Libby, who was there. They couldn't change it. Like, there's so many things. Again, but that wasn't the reason why we lost the game.
Yeah.
It felt like it. So, you know.
Do you think he made the right call?
I'll say this. From an official standpoint, if he thought it was a foul, he made the right call. Because you have to you just be decisive. He didn't, like, I'll tell you how many times you see this in the cut, George. And again, I was referencing back to refereeing when I was at team camp. Being stacked, there's such a thing called being stacked, where you can't see the play because you're stacked behind a player or a coach, and I don't know if he was stacked here I don't know if someone was in his line of sight. When you look, see, he runs to the play and he almost gets out of position. And I'll tell you one thing with these officials, if you freeze it right there for a second, the official in front of the San Diego State bench, in my mind, that's his call. Like these triangulation of these officials, the A, B, and the C, the lead, the trail, and what I can't remember the third nomenclature was. I don't think that was his call, but it wasn't like he threw his hand up before he blew the whistle, which you see a ton of. A lot of guys, they get indecisive. I think if you watch this again, he sees the play, he runs down to try to get in better position after the inbounds. Now he has to reposition. He almost Yeah, I think he's in position, but I'm not sure that was his call. And again, this is why I think just a simple appearance by these three guys, not a plethora and a barrage of questions, especially in the NCAA tournament, from the lead official and the two, was it right? Was that his call? Which I'm not sure. And again, look, if you look at him, he doesn't make it right away, which gives me a little bit of pause, but he didn't put his hand up and then make it. That happens a lot. And we don't see that because we see these type of angles, but I'm not so sure if you ask the officials, was that, and I did that all the time, George. So your point about dealing with officials, I wanted to be educated on who was responsible for what part of the court, because not all the officials should be looking at the ball. There's a lot of stuff going on off the ball. One guy, when the ball comes into his area, is responsible. I'm not sure, as the trail official here, that was his call. I could be wrong, but I think the guy in the slot in front of San Diego State's bench had a better look, and he probably should have deferred and realized, let him make the call if it's a foul.
Kerry, hang with us. We're going to go to the break, and then we'll get Watson in the middle of this as well. I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about a variety of things. Obviously, this call was right at the front of it all. Kerry Keating, former head basketball coach at Santa Clara. Before that, an assistant not only under Jan Van Bredekoff at Vandy, but also under Buzz Peterson at Tennessee. We'll take a break, and we'll be back. Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you.
Family owned and operated for more than 2 decades, Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you are interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303. Again, that's 615-356-0303, or log on to alacofinewoodfloors.com. Alaco Fine Wood Floors, serving Middle Tennessee's hardwood flooring needs since 1995.
Well, as all of you can tell from the first segment we had with Kerry Keating, he also is very good at articulating, has done a lot of color commentary out on the West Coast after his days at Santa Clara. He's the former head basketball coach there. But for a lot of us in this area, a former assistant at Vandy under Jan Van Bredikoff, later a former assistant at the University of Tennessee under Buzz Peterson. Watson, the floor is yours.
Hey, Kerry, good to see you.
Watson, my guy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Tough day, but I'm doing good. I'm doing
Watson,
good.
can we just talk first about how proud we are of George for letting Donnelly Timmons put his house on that ad? I mean, I'm just shocked that George did that. That ad was tremendous. For him to have his backyard on there is just I miss Nashville by more and more, but I really miss being in that backyard. That's something else.
You know, it's funny because you've stayed here before, and
it's an unbelievable spread. Now you let everyone see it. Now you can't keep anyone out of that place. It's just going to be a spring party every time now. It's that pool, that grill. We should do the show from back there. I mean, come on.
And for this, I invited him on.
All right, you get what you pay for.
Yep.
Kerry, as a coach, for longtime coach, the two things I always said about officials is they don't win and lose the games. And they're human beings. They make mistakes. I probably made more in a game than they did. As the head coach, offensive coordinator, whatever it might have been at the time. But I've always felt like, Kerry, that they should be held accountable like I'm held accountable, like 18 to 22-year-olds are held accountable after games. I've never thought they should be off limits. And they should have to go to a press conference and answer the tough questions just like I have to, and the players have to. How do we not protect an 18 to 22-year-old, but we'll protect an official? So that's always been a pet peeve. And the second pet peeve, and I'll get you to comment on both, is I've never liked going through a year with a crew or people it's not always the same crew in basketball. In football, it is. Because you're with a conference and it's the same crew in every game. And then they do this, quote, all-star thing where you throw people together that have never been together before in the biggest games of the year. It makes no sense to me. There's big-time coordination between officials in basketball and football, and yet they're working with a guy they're shaking hands with before the game that they don't even know. And those two things have always bothered me. I've just never wanted to blame them for a loss or even a win. But dadgum, let's treat them like human beings and let them do what everybody else does. And working together, if that crew had been together 20 times during the year, Kerry, those two guys would have looked at each other, and I'm not sure that even there would have been a foul call because they're looking at each other. They've done this so many times together, they would understand. When you're working with somebody you don't know, now you're on the island by yourself. You don't know what to expect from that middle guy over there, and so you blow the whistle. I just think there's those two things I've had as pet peeves for a long time.
Quick answer. In the NCAA tournament, they're being judged on their performance, and that performance is able to be broken down after the game, not during the game. Yeah. These guys want to get to the national championship. They want to get to the Final Four. They want to be at the top of this game and what has been created in this ladder system that, again, as I referenced earlier, is still an independent contractor entity, and the conglomerate of conferences using the same officials, Mountain West, Pac-10, Big Ten, Big East, ACC. There are referees working in different conferences. Point being is we've come up in this system up to this point, and we're at an inflection point right now for college athletics where, as we knew it and as we grew up in it, it's almost over. This is now going to become the actual business that it is. By treating the employees, the players, like employees with benefits and ability to monetize, not just in scholarship. I think what this calls is for a consolidation and single point of delivery for the officials in as far as basketball is concerned, because it's a big business. Look, we don't have to remind each other what funds the NCAA. March Madness. It's the sole reason why the top 80 to 100 schools haven't seceded from the NCAA and run their own deal. Because you know why? the NCAA, which it technically is the schools themselves, but that entity has held on with the contract in the billions, and that money funds all of the other sports outside of football for all of the other NCAA schools. Why these units are so valuable, why this exposure is so valuable. That tournament is it's going to be so hard to take it away and change it. You're going to have this challenge of how it's going to. I mean, it's just all these thoughts running through my head, having done it for 25 years, and now how it's finally changing as it relates to the officials, Watson. I think they need to finally say, okay, we're not dealing with them as independent contractors anymore. We're going to take this in-house, not at the conference level, because there's always a director of officials at the conference level. And by the way, that guy is usually a former official who is in the league with these guys. These guys rent cars together. They go to lunch, dinner together. They travel together. They don't work as much together in the postseason, to your point. And it's almost like, well, yeah, I should have deferred that call maybe to that guy in the slot because by rule, that's his call. But if he's the one that's going to miss it, and I'm going to take a shot. And you don't know if they're thinking that quickly because they're in the game. You know what? I may be overthinking it and probably don't. But when you break it down like this is the reason why we need to have them in a pool report. The exposure and the dissection that modern media and social media is allowing us to do to these guys almost forces us to have to put them in a position just to answer some few basic questions to end all the speculation, but help the product. Because it becomes very, very inconsistent, and it is very, very difficult. But there's so many look, I went back and forth on this when I was in the WCC. We had Pac-12 guys, and then they were working the Mountain West in the secondary and WCC in the third. And I would say, why? We're in the cities that are in the Pac-12. They can work the Bay Area games on Thursday, work our games on Friday. I was trying to tell WCC, alter your schedule. So if Pac-12 plays Thursday, Saturday, let us play Friday, Sunday. Then we're going to get the same officials. They don't even have to travel. And these guys can make more money by banking their per diems than having to fly. Deaf ears. And you know what happened? They ended up going to the Mountain West on Tuesdays because the Mountain West decided we're going to invest more and pay them more. What I think it was at the time, $2,200 a game, where we were going to pay them $1,500. Well, I'm no mathematician or a great businessman, but I know where money's. And if it's not that much of a travel, you get in and out of Denver or San Diego like that, and that's what happens. And that starts to affect the product when you get up-and-comers in the WCC. And I can go on a whole diatribe about this. There are actually 4 guys that we had that are in the NBA right now. Talk about how bad the NBA is. They took guys from our conference and groomed them to be NBA officials. So we had guys in the hopper, but we had no program in place. Point being in all this is it's long past time, and I think all the changes in the business of college basketball right now it would behoove them to centralize the referee organization and bring it under the umbrella as a full-time job and have a national director of officials that also assigns, not just evaluates, but assigns, and do that by region or conference. But don't let the conferences get into these groupings together. It just makes for a very much inconsistent product, and especially when this much money is going to be on the line.
100% agree, Kerry. There's enough money out there now. Yeah. But football has really upped it. And so there's enough money out there now for these guys to be full-time employees, in my personal opinion. And you just got to spend your money in the right places. And can you imagine there's still NFL guys that aren't just full-time? They work other jobs, and then they're covering the Super Bowl, or they've got the conference championship games to go to the Super Bowl. I don't understand why we put so much money into coaches now, so much money into players, but we want to have all officials being part-time. I don't get it, never have understood it up to a point because there wasn't enough money to do that. Okay. But now there is. And I don't get that. And the other thing to get you to comment on just real quick is I just feel like they should be responsible and have to go in front of press just like everybody else. I just don't understand why they're protected. So, somebody hates them so bad they hate the coach. They hate the players on the opposing team. I mean, come on, let's let them be human beings and take it like everybody else has to.
There is no name, image, and likeness for a referee because he should be anonymous. He should be just a part of the floor, and he is a part of the game. Those 3 guys are a part of the game. My point in this is, as the business side of it is, there's also a lot of valuable real estate on a referee's chest and back. Yeah. And if you want to offset what this cost, because look, college athletics, I can tell you from dealing with these guys for ages, the first thing they'll say is, well, we don't have any money for that. Even in the billions that are out there, we can't afford that. We don't have any money for that. Well, someone can, and someone will. And in the end, if you really want to take advantage of that real estate that is highly visible on every game, then put it on a referee's shirt, put it on a referee's back, not in this gaudy banner, but just something that's a logo. Look, someone's going to pay good money for that because of the visibility. And especially now with the streaming ability to watch these games all the time, and all of them, not just on national TV in your own comfort of your own home, but sitting in the park on your phone. Like that's more about, so there's no excuse for this to not afford it. And I think for the consistency of things, if in fact they care about it, and look, Dan Gavin and I go back when we were kids. His dad and my dad were one of the original guys back in the Big East. He's the head of the – I would love to pose this question to him if he's even thinking about it, because there's a million things going on. I'm not volunteering myself to be that guy, but they definitely have people out there that could help this, and I think would help the product and help the game, and in the end, help the tournament, because it'd be a better way to get these crews. And you make a great point. I'd love to see crews stay together for periods of time, if not pre-conference and non-conference. They certainly do it within the conference. And conferences get called differently. I remember we were at Seton Hall way back in the day, and our first NCAA appearance was in 1988, the year before we went to the national championship in 1989. And Mark Bryant was our key player. And we were out in Arizona. I can't remember who we were playing. We were out in the West region. And literally, we were in the Big East. Remember the Big East at one point experimented with 6 fouls. It was so physical. It was just a different brand. And we were always worried about who the officials are going to be, because they may not be accustomed to how we were going to play. And sure enough, Mark got 2 quick fouls in that game, and I don't think we were able to overcome it. And again, it's just a point of reference, but the consistency would certainly help the product when it comes to the end. And look, we don't have to spend as much time talking about it today as we did, in the future.
Yeah. Last thing, I know George, we're probably getting close here, but I made a comment before, Kerry, you came on. You may have heard it.
Hey, Watson, hold on just a second. Let me ask Kerry one thing. Kerry, obviously we're paying you well for this visit.
Oh, a huge amount, and nowhere near the backyard that I can afford, but I might be able to get one of those deck chairs now.
Right, a deck chair off the Queen Mary. Will you stick around for one more segment?
I'll stick around for as long as you want. I got nowhere to go. I'm not getting ready to play in the Final Four this year. I do have ties to 3 of these coaches, though, which I'm interested to tell you about. But, yeah, I'll stick around as long as you want, always.
Okay. Watson, you want to hold the question until we come back with him?
Whatever's best, babe.
Okay. Kerry, what you don't know is put Kerry back on. I want to see his
reaction.
Kerry, we do this thing called Stat of the Day, and most of the time this is designed to make Watson and I look stupid. But today you're going to help us with it.
Oh boy.
Yes, and then we'll start the 3:00 hour Central Time and bring you back up for legitimate commentary as opposed to making you look stupid with us. So we'll go to the break on that. Kerry Keating has been with us. I think you find him entertaining, got some strong opinions. Man, we said officiating and boom, it was like winding up the Energizer Bunny. Stay tuned. We've got more coming up.
This is my buddy and former Nashville Sounds PA announcer Eric Berner. I always laughed in the old days at Greer Stadium when I would walk in, Eric would immediately play my favorite song, Van Halen's Jump. But then I learned he actually has a real job with Rockcastle Wealth Advisors.
Yeah, George, that's what I do. I help people in the pursuit of making their money live as long as they do. Everybody's situation is different, so I use a customized and individualized, personalized approach to the person I'm working with. Old 401ks, retirement planning, insurance planning, inheritance planning. Those are things that people like to get some more information about.
One of the things I find is people don't even know where to start, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, so I can usually help people with an initial phone call or meeting that is a no charge and no obligation.
And I'll bet you have a phone number and a website.
I do, George. They can call me at 615-235-1058 or rockcastlewealth.com or Eric at rockcastlewealth.com.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports, and then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back in. We got to get to Stat of the Day, brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards. You can find them out in Shelbyville, 204 East Depot Street. They're open Tuesday through Friday, noon to 5. Also Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. Give them a call at 931-492-4304. We've got a special guest for today's Stat of the Day.
Oh, yes, don't we, though? By the way, you may have caught it earlier. Kerry Keating grew up in a very athletic background. His father was the longtime athletic director at Seton Hall for years and years. But anyway, let's put his little butt on the griddle. Although David says this is a layup. You say it's a layup?
I think you guys got it today.
Okay.
Definitely with Kerry's help.
Read it out, Billy.
Here we go. For the first time since 2011, a number 1 seed has failed to reach the NCAA Men's Final Four. Can you name the 4 teams that competed in the 2011 Men's Final Four?
So we're talking March of 2011.
Yep.
Kerry, who was our national champion?
I remember that year. The national championship was UConn, because I just saw that stat.
Okay,
when they got in this year, that was one of their former titles.
Okay,
yeah,
Watson,
and they beat what I call a group of 5. Didn't they beat Butler that year?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's the 2 I remember. I don't know the other 2.
Wait a minute, they beat Butler for the national title?
Yeah, Butler went back to back with Gordon Hayward and Shelvin Mack.
Oh, that's right.
Lost to Duke and lost to Connecticut. I think you mentioned.
Okay, so we've got 2 of the 4. Trust me when I tell you, Kerry.
I just remember that game that UConn beat Butler. I do remember that.
We're not going to take long.
Well, I was in the Final Four in 2006 with Jim Larinaga when at George Mason, when they were an 11 seed. There was another one that made it after that, because my kids were just asking me this because they're infatuated with these seeding things. Hey, what's the lowest seed to ever make it? And I remember telling them about George Mason making it when we were there at UCLA the year we lost to Florida, first time back to back. But VCU was an 11. VCU was an 11 seed. Was this VCU's year?
It is. It wasn't the first year of the play-in game, first 4. So you're correct on VCU.
Was that this year?
You got 3 of the 4 so far. VCU is correct.
VCU.
Well done. Is Wichita State in there?
That was 2013.
I think George said it earlier, right?
Did you say wasn't it? I don't remember Kentucky's. I mean, I don't remember.
Okay,
I was trained at Tennessee to forget about Kentucky yesterday. So, by the way, Plaz, you mentioned I don't know how many people worked at Vandy and Tennessee, but also hold the distinction of the only coach to ever work for a Carolina and a Duke guy. So not only did I work for Vandy and Tennessee, I also worked for a Carolina guy and Buzz Peterson and a Duke guy and Tommy Amaker.
Boy, he's a unicorn. That's rare.
Those 4, and especially down here, ACC, SEC country, I could tell some stories.
Yeah. So Kerry Keating is with us. He's the former head basketball coach at Santa Clara. As we referenced earlier, before that, assistant stops at Tennessee and Vanderbilt, among others. And Watson, we have spent a ton of time on officiating. I'm not sure that was necessarily the plan, but it's made for some really interesting talk. I know you had at least one more for Kerry, so have at it.
Well, the last thing, and then we can go somewhere else, George. I just remember in all my coaching, Kerry, that 2 things in football that your players had to adjust to every game was how they call pass interference and how they call holding. And I would talk to our kids during the game about, hey, man, they're letting it go more today. Don't be afraid to put your hands on them early. They're letting holding really go right now. I'm telling you, you can hold on longer than normal. We would talk about this. And the only thing I'd ever get upset, I can remember a game playing an SEC school when I was at UAB, and we're going in to take the lead in the 4th quarter, hadn't had a holding call on us the whole game, and all of a sudden at their 20-yard line, we get 2 back-to-back holding calls. And so the thing that would upset me would be change during the game if you've let this was about 5 minutes to go in the game. And I just don't understand how they change late. And this is kind of one of those examples to me in that game is, and I said before you came on, Kerry, to me, this whole tournament is the most physical tournament I've seen in a long while. They kind of let everything go in this tournament. And only 22 fouls called up till that last one. And it may have even been the 22nd. I'm not sure about that, but that's the thing that bothers me. You go the whole game with hands all over you. They're slapping arms when they're shooting. You can see it during the game, especially on some layups. They hit an arm as a guy goes up, or on a jam or whatever. And just to call that at the end after you haven't called it is where, to me, it's tough. And I grew up like George. I was always late in the games when you couldn't get an official to blow a whistle. On the last plays of the game, they wouldn't do it. And here it's the reverse. This guy hadn't blown the whistle, or they hadn't, pretty much this whole game, 22 total fouls. And yet they blow it on the last play of the game. That's the part, to me, that makes it hard for me.
For this one in particular, I'd love to see the breakdown of the 3 officials into that 22.
Yeah.
Who called more of the 22? And there's a rotation that the officials have to go through, obviously, to be a lead and a trail and a slot official, so that they're not in the same position for a multiple amount of possessions. You always see them rotating. But I'll take it back even further, Watson. Like, what we would do is, in the beginning of the season, we would bring those officials into practice. We'd bring as many as we could, 2 or 3 times, have them officiate practice, which would help the flow of that so the coaches didn't have to do it. Let us go live a little bit, mostly towards the 3rd week of practice, entering into what would be the beginning of the season in a week or so. But they would always have points of emphasis. There's going to be a points of emphasis. So it's almost like they went back to last year and what was everybody bitching about? And let's just make that a point of freedom of movement, or hand checking, or charges, or blocks, or, verticality. So you try to get that from them. And then I'd try to get that again, not just the schedules of these guys, but get that from a head of officials so we could coach that way in the beginning of the season. And it's always easier to back off aggressiveness than it is to turn up complacency. So I thought it always behooved the teams from a defensive standpoint to be as aggressive as they possibly could. And some guys still do this. I think Huggins does a great job of this at West Virginia and hasn't changed no matter what the emphasis is. They can't call all the fouls. They can't call. And if they do, it's going to be all on them. It's this cat and mouse game. But the other point of it too is you can always make the adjustment on the offensive end towards making different cuts or putting guys in different screening. The one that always blew us out at UCLA, because Ben Howland was such a staunch advocate of hedging ball screens, was showing on the ball screen, and any type of contact one year was a foul on the ball handler. Well, the guy runs into him and he's standing there. It's not a foul. It was freedom of movement. And probably, again, back to your point of this inconsistency has been prevalent throughout the last decade or more. And maybe more so now. Now, I'm removed from knowing and having the privilege of knowing what the emphasis is and what they're trying to I always use this word because the referee, adjudicate. I always loved how the we were going to adjudicate the game this way. It's like the only place where ever you – and I find myself using that word all the time because I just love throwing it, adjudicate this. Who adjudicated this right? Right? So, yeah, I think transparency now more than ever is important. I think consolidation of the entity is going to be more and more important as we create an actual business now that NIL and the business of coaching has become in college basketball, and hopefully they make that adjustment. Hopefully they're thinking about it, because I do think it affects the product, and no one wants to watch three officials. They're just if you don't notice them, they've done their job, and that's really what you're hoping for. Look, there very few of them I didn't like. There's only maybe one or two people in my life that I don't really care. I can get along with anybody, but you don't want to make it personal as a coach, because they're human beings and you don't know what they're going through. And you don't know what. I'll tell you a funny story, because you got to have a laugh about it. So we have a guy officiating. I won't throw him out his name, but he's officiating our league in WCC. And sure as nuts, he's a gate agent for Southwest and was adjudicating one of our onboarding efforts to a game. I about lost it. I literally turned around wait a minute, is that? And my assistant's like, you won't believe this. And I can't make this up, George. We're on the flight. I was literally on the flight, and one of my assistants picks up the Sky Mall magazine, and there's an advertisement in there for dental implants. One of the officials, who, by the way, just officiated this last weekend. He goes, is that? Holy crap, that. Yep. Same trip. God is my witness. I'm like, you can't make this up. So the world of officiating goes way beyond these three guys just making calls. There's a human element to it too that make for a great sitcom.
Okay, Kerry, I want to get your opinion on this, and Watson, feel free to chime in on it. I was really fired up to see the Alabama-San Diego State game. But when I watched it, I have to admit, the first half was an absolute joke. I have never seen so little basketball skill. Neither one of them could throw it in the ocean. Kerry, we've got a tournament where nobody can shoot.
I think we're oversaturated with everybody who thinks they can make a three, let alone an outside shot. There's two things I think that lead to that, George. An overabundance of the reliance on three and not having enough guys that can actually make them. And then a reliance on analytics to either shoot a three or a layup and no mid-range, and not enough work on that. And now defense is at the highest level, force you to take mid-range shots, and you can't make them because you haven't taken them. I think those are two things that are prevalent and lead into that. Now, I'll say this about San Diego State, having been on the West Coast for a long time. They've always played that way. They've always played low-scoring, high defensive-minded games. So they literally caught a great break in this year, as Watson said, as physical as it was. That played into their style very, very well, and certainly helped them. It also helped that Brandon Miller could make a shot. But that being said, I think things set up for them. It'll be very interesting to see. And again, I hate to say it, but the winner of the Florida Atlantic San Diego State game may have more to do with the style of the three officials than the styles of the game itself. And that's just the way it's become. Because Florida Atlantic is a very heavily reliant three-point shooting team. It's feast or famine. They got guys that can get to the rim. They got big guys. They have a great spread on their roster. that game is going to be a contrast of styles. And don't styles make fights, but referees shouldn't. And I think that's what's going to happen in that game. And we're going to know that right out of the gate, because I think it's the first game on Saturday.
Now, Kerry, Watson and I go way back, even farther than you and I go back. I did his television coaches show when he was at Austin Peay, and I can tell you, it's the worst coaches show in the history of mankind.
At Austin Peay?
At Austin Peay.
Really?
I was a student at Vandy. I had a nice case of acne. I wore plaid pants. And wallabies. But we move on. Kerry, he and I have had some fun over a school that you used to go head-to-head with, Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of fun just saying Gonzaga's a fraud. They're never going to win a national title. They don't play a lick of defense. And how much of that am I right about? As I watch UConn just shred them Saturday night, is there a level of defense that they're not playing that the rest of the country is?
Well, by the way, if you want to piss off Gonzaga, people call it Gonzaga. It's the easiest way to get that taken care of, because they hate that when you mispronounce it. So I've been doing it intentionally for literally 15 to 20 years, and I still do it to this day.
So when they would introduce and Santa Clara's head coach, Kerry Keating, what would they do?
Gonzaga. Oh, no. These people, you got no shot at winning at that place. I would go up there and hope we don't lose by 50. But I will say this about the 9 games I had with them at home. We only won 1 of them. We lost 3 of them at the buzzer, and 8 of them by a grand total of 56 points in 8 years. So I took a little bit of schadenfreude in the fact that they beat the guy who took my job after by 60 in 1 year. So at least I had 8 years to get to 56. Hey, look, I got to give Mark a ton of credit. I honestly had them getting out of the region. I know UConn had a lot of momentum coming out of the Big East and put the pieces back together throughout the season and has an unbelievable roster. I mean, Hawkins is as good a shooter as I've seen since my Terry DeHare days, who also wore number 24, was a Big East leading scorer, a prevalent three-point shooter in the early 90s. He's as close to I've seen of Terry DeHare as I've ever – I mean, not just by number and body type, but the way that they shoot the ball, it's as pure and it's going in. If he misses, it's like, oh my goodness, it's a surprise. Obviously, super athletic. They defend. They have pieces. They have glue guys. They have a big guy right now that's dominating in the paint. I think that was more on UConn than it was a lack of Gonzaga, not Gonzaga, Gonzaga.
Right.
The ability to overcome that. I don't want to say that the early, and again, I hate to do it, go back to officiating. They didn't call the travels and the loose pivot feet on Timmy in the game before. And what happens? Everyone's an official on social media. And here, you don't think those guys look at that? You guys don't think they're having the breakdown of the pivots that Timmy makes and they miss travels in the game where he had 30 some odd points against UCLA? 2 travels in the first, I think, 4 possessions Timmy has. And he's looking around, and now he's in his head. And then he gets all discombobulated and foul trouble. Like they need him on the floor. They needed him on the floor. The foul trouble hurt. But I think it also hurt because he wasn't scoring the points that they so badly needed. They are an offensive first team. They've always been sufficient defensively, not as good defensively as their WCC counterparts, St. Mary's. And they get no credit for that, as good as defensively they've been through the years of Randy Bennett. I thought this was the year they were kind of under the radar, but capable, because they had a roster of players that they're kind of, I wouldn't say up to par where they've been in the past, but capable of winning a national championship without the pressure of being the 1 or 2 seed. And all that garbage about the conference doesn't prepare them for that. I don't buy into that as much.
Oh Lord,
I don't buy into that as much as me being in the conference. That is. Let me tell you why. Because I give more credit.
We're going to have some fun with this.
No, because I'm sure. Look, based on reaction, I'm sure Watson has said just the contrary. But let me ask you this.
No. I'm on your side.
No, you are. George is. We got George on this one.
And I'm saying you're nuts.
Well,
you're absolutely nuts.
But let me give Mark credit on this, because it would be very easy for him to go 35-2 every single year. Simple, because they have Mike Roth, who was their AD for years, ran that place like a high major place once they realized that it could be done. And there's a little known fact about this. Before they went to the Elite Eight in 1999, as far as I know, the school was done, like going out of business, finished, under, until they made the run to the Elite Eight. The president figured out we have something here. They invested in it. They made it something special. That place is a high major run operation in a mid-major conference. So what they've done, and this is probably a conscious decision, they've actually done something I think even harder to do, is flip essentially a conference and non-conference schedule by treating the conference as their non-conference and their non-conference as a conference at the level they're at. Playing Michigan State, playing Texas, playing Duke, playing UCLA. Like, that is not, by the way, not that many other schools have that respect to get those games in mass that they do. This is the credit to the program that they've built.
You're
and
right.
It's going to be fascinating to see if they finally bite the bullet and say, you know what? We have enough resources now to make this time zone adverse. We can play in Pac-12, Mountain West, maybe even the Big East, because who cares about conferences anymore? It's just a grouping of teams that are like-minded or want to be in a group together. It's not a conference anymore. So, or they keep doing what they're doing, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they've gotten the national championship. They're number one in the country. They're going to continue to get players. They lost their top international recruiter to Arizona, and they're still getting kids, maybe not as much internationally, but you got to believe that every kid, and look at Malachi Smith at Tennessee Chattanooga, leading scorer in the conference, certainly on his way, takes a year and goes out and plays Gonzaga and comes off the bench. Like, they're going to get kids from that portal. I would go so far as to say this. I don't know how good that kid that's leaving Arizona is, or why he's leaving. The guard, Carice, I don't know how you say his name. He's in the portal as a starter from Arizona. That's the type of kid that goes to Gonzaga. Don't even think about it, because the way that they operate that program is at such a high level. No one else in that conference has a chance. And credit to St. Mary's, because they've done it on just talent and coaching, not facilities, maybe a little bit of a pipeline. But that facility compared to Gonzaga is like my backyard compared to George's. It's like, forget about it. It's not even close. Like, I got weeds growing in my backyard. George has the sprawling, barbecue pit, and you saw the ad.
You're so full of bull.
George's house is the Gonzaga, and mine is the St. Mary's. Like, we can compete. We got a court back there.
San Diego
Gonzaga's always going to win.
Go ahead, Watson. Tell him what the argument's been.
Well, I just can't tell you how much, Kerry. I'll send you some money for coming on, because it's just helped me so much, because all I listen to is cut down Gonzaga.
There you go.
I'm in with the group. I'll try to tick them off too. But that's all I've heard. Fraud, ain't worth a flip. Biggest, I just have to take him on sometimes. I take it and I take it and I take it.
Win
and
a
finally
national
I take
title.
him on. And they have upset everybody. I picked them to go. I said it'll be UConn or Gonzaga to come out of it to go to the Final Four. And he laughs at me. He totally laughs at me. So now he's getting to still do it because Connecticut killed Gonzaga. So he's forgot all those good wins they had, but how they stunk in the Connecticut game. So see, they're nothing but a fraud. So I still get it. I can't get out of the hole with it.
You're only as good as your last game, unfortunately.
I'm having to put now. I have to listen to it for another year.
Hey, I'll text Fewy right now and tell him, like, stop screwing with us right now. We got to uphold our end of the bargain. We're out here doing the Lord's work for you. Like, can you hold your end? Yeah, I took it for 9 years, just taking L's left and right for you. Mark
had a little more of Gonzaga than I've had.
Mark would be like, oh man, I hate playing you guys. I'm like, the hell you do? You win every game. What do you hate? That the game's close? Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't beat us by 50 like everyone else. We only won by 5. And by the way, if you don't think as a young, dumb head coach that I was, that I didn't think that those officials were in bed with what they were doing, I'd be lying. Like, oh yeah, of course these guys want Gonzaga to win because they're getting all these units and the money for the league, and we're just a second-rate outfit. Like, yeah. But when we beat them that 1 year, oh, it was the best feeling ever. And I got a great side story. I love telling because it all comes back full circle. I always used to tell my staff there was a window for conception. I didn't want our families to get in the way and vice versa of our jobs. I wanted to be conjoined, but I didn't want it to be a conflict. And I wanted you to be at the birth of all of your kids. There's a window, guys. and the window is July and August. Do the math. These are all young guys. We birthed like 10 kids in my staff. They're all young guys. And we beat Gonzaga in our second year in January. And the head coach currently right now at Appalachia State, one of my former assistants, Dustin Kearns, Dobbins Bennett grad, by the way, was our GA at Tennessee when I was at Buzz. He comes in with his head hanging at the beginning of the year, like October, and his head's like down. And I hadn't seen his wife all summer. We were out on the road recruiting. And literally, like the sense that I had, the sixth sense as a head coach. And I said, all right, when's she due? And he's like, what? I'm like, when's she due? He goes, oh, Coach, November 15th. I'm like, Dustin, that's opening weekend, and we're on the road. Like, I know you don't want to miss a game, but I don't want you to miss the birth of your first child. I said, I said, whoa, time out. I stopped myself. I said, Gonzaga. I said, you after the Gonzaga game, I said, I told you guys, it was in January, 10 months later. I said, abstain after big wins. I said, and you violated the law. These guys, my kids are born 4 hours apart a week after the season, April 8th and 9th, 4 hours apart to the minute. And I'm like, guys, it's not that hard. Like, January, we're off the road July, you're off the road for a week. Take that 7 days, go somewhere with your wife, make a family. This is what head coaches do, Watson. We plan to the T. We plan things.
I wipe my hands of that one.
George knows how we plan things.
I'm not
George
going
is the reason. By the way,
no debate.
For everyone listening out there, in Nashville, which I was in Nashville pre all of the hoopla stadiums, minor league stadiums down. I was there. It was. We're trying to get this back, and we're trying to do Midnight Madness. The current AD at Colorado was the assistant AD for marketing at Vanderbilt. He didn't like my idea. We got to have Midnight Madness. When I went in there and said, look, our kids want to have Midnight Madness. We got to have a show. This is mid-90s, lasers, lights. Come on now. Kentucky, Tennessee, have a show. He's like, no, we're not doing it. I'm like, the hell, we're not doing it. This is where George and I bonded. George's like, hey, you can come on the radio show anytime you want. We went out to lunch, hit it off. Look, we're still talking to this
Real
day.
Bravo.
And exactly. And George, $5,000 raised on our own, grassroots. And I had a headset on below the deck at Memorial, running Midnight Madness as an assistant coach at Vanderbilt, as a 23-year-old SEC assistant. Like, okay, cue the lights, get the laser show. We had the Beastie Boys going, all this. Like, the kids loved it, and we still went 12-16. But we had a hell of a Midnight Madness because of that guy right there. So, look, I'll be loyal to anything that George says, but I certainly won't give in as far as Gonzaga goes, because I do believe that after getting my brains beat in for 8 or 9 years. All due respect, what they're doing is unprecedented. Never happen again.
Kerry, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I'm going to call you once we're through with the show, and hopefully you will have cooled off by then. We'll give you
This has been great. This is a great shot of adrenaline. My kids are going to wonder what happened to me today. I was exhausted from coaching 7th grade basketball this weekend. Talk about bad officials. These guys stay on one side of the floor, and my only request to these guys is, guys, just change ends of the floor, because you're calling the game one way for one team the whole game. You're going to hurt these kids. My kid got his brains beat out this weekend, and I loved it because he needed to toughen up, but it's completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. Like, the guy down there is letting him go nuts. This guy down here is calling every foul. Like, guys, what are we doing here? Help the kids out. It's about the kids.
You need some help. Hey,
I'll need a lot of help.
Talk to you in a little while. Kerry,
thanks,
thank
guys.
See you, Kerry.
Okay, we're going to go to the break, and then Watson, I guess we allow David Wilson the opportunity to rebut a little bit. He got all inflamed that officials shouldn't have to be involved in press conferences. I think we need to find out why after the break. Fair enough?
Good enough.
Stay tuned. We're coming back.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is really simple. I chose Strike and Spare, and they were amazing. They have great food, great bowling, and a staff that is truly ready to go the extra mile to help you. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5685. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
We're back. We're going to sort of discuss a little. Obviously, we discussed the call yesterday in the Creighton-San Diego State game way longer than I expected we would, but what the heck? It's an important call. Excuse me. I guess that thing doesn't work. David Wilson of our staff is a young, aspiring referee. And at what level are you calling games now?
The high school level with the TWSAA.
Okay. It seemed to hit a nerve, the whole concept of officials in particular in a situation like yesterday being brought into a press conference to explain their side. Why are you so bothered by that?
I don't think it'll make the coaches feel any better, and the crowd, the fan base is any better as well. Watson, I'm just going to ask you, if you got me in a room as an official and I said, I'm the trail official in the play, which that official was, the player took a dribble drive from my court of the area and I followed it all the way to the basket. I saw illegal contact on an airborne shooter, and that's why I called the foul. Would that make you feel any better as a head coach? I'm just asking.
That's a little disrespectful, but no, it's not going to help me feel better. I think we're all in the game together, and I don't think a high school official should have to do that. But I think college officials, as big as the business has gotten, it's not about trying to make me feel better. It's trying to make the game the best we can make it. And I believe that they are human beings, and I love the game being called by coaches, being played by players. Everybody's a human being. I don't even like all of these instant replays and all of that near as much. But I just think everybody ought to be accountable, especially when they're really making really good money to do this as a job. And I see nothing wrong with having them. I'm not picking on them. I'm not trying to feel better myself. I just think for the game itself, we're sitting here talking about it now. If the guy had walked up and there's all three officials are there, they get asked 10 questions. Might not just be this one play. It might be throughout the game. Why was there just 22 fouls called? Why was this game seems to be very physical, but there wasn't a lot of fouls called in this game. They can explain why they called 22 fouls. I see it to help the game, guys, George, as much as anything, not to help me. I'm not trying to get on an official. I've never, ever blamed an official in my life for a ball game, and never would. It doesn't mean I hadn't gotten on many of them, and I've had many of them get on me in the same way. But I just think that's the human piece I think would help the game. But Lord, no, not on a high school level, not on a junior high level, but from the college up to the NBA, I think that ought to be part of the game because they're a big part of the game.
Yeah, I wasn't coming after you. I was just asking from a coach's perspective, would that help you if they just kind of walked you through the process of the call and why they made it in that way? If Billy, you can go back to
I know what they're responsible for. I'm not a very good coach if I don't know what every official on the floor is responsible for. And I don't know what they're responsible for in basketball, but I can dang sure tell you what each one's responsible for in football. So I don't need to be told that. I'm not wanting to hear from the official. He's already told me what he called. I've already gotten on him on the sidelines, and he's come over and explained it to me. I'm just talking about, I just feel like that they're a big part of the game on the higher levels, and they ought to be that. They ought to be responsible all the way through, just like my 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are, and just like my coaching staff is.
I hear you. So, Billy, if you can go back to the front of this play, I know, George, you might not want to spend a lot of time on this.
It's okay.
You have your triangle here of officials. If you go ahead and pause it, Billy. So the guy down here at the bottom of the screen to the left, he is your trail official administering the inbound, okay? He is the trail. The official on the opposite side is the slot official. And then the lead official is on the baseline. He's out of the shot, but he's on the same side as the official who administers, okay? You want to have two officials ball side at all times. That's your triangle. So two officials on the strong side. So go ahead and play it, Billy. Go ahead. So the other official's on the baseline down here in the corner. So as the ball goes in, he puts himself in a position. So stop it. He had the dribble drive all the way to the basket. It came from his area. So at this point right here, you could have a double whistle from the slot and the trail official right here. You're not going to get a whistle from the guy on the baseline. So he's out of the play. So there's only two possible whistles in this scenario, from the slot official on the opposite side and the trail official that the ball came from. So I think from what the other replay, that this trail official had the best angle of the hand on the back on the right side. The slot official couldn't see that on the opposite side. So he wouldn't go up and assume that contact, if that makes sense. So as this plays on, you get the cam from above the rim. You can see it as well from that slot official on the right. He's not going to see the hand on the hip on the back left. He just sees him fall to the ground. You can't assume that foul. The trail official would have saw the best angle from that on that hand of the hip right there. You're not going to see that from the other side of the floor. So that's where I think he's coming from. He saw illegal contact that way on the airborne shooter, and that's where that foul came from.
You know, one of the reasons, or Watson, one of the things, you remember this and I remember this, the Drew Pearson playoff game against the Vikings, where the official, if I remember correctly, got hit by a bottle at Old Met Stadium in Minneapolis. Remember the play I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the worries they have about trying to protect officials and replace. For years, scoreboards would never show replays. And it's only been, I would say, in the last 10 years that we've gotten to a point where if you're in the arena or in the football stadium, that you will see the replay of a close call.
I think it's longer than that.
I think it is longer?
Yeah. But I mean, why do you think I have people that protect me leaving a game? I've been hit in the head with bottles.
Right.
And I've had players get hit in the head with bottles. And I remember it being in Missouri, and oranges hit us from everywhere. So I don't want anybody hurt, but I just think that honestly, there's times I think it would help the official to be able to explain what he caught. It would help him to be able to go in and explain what he called. There's been times I remember going in and having to explain a call I made that cost us a game. And once I explained it, I think there was a little better understanding, not that everybody didn't still hate my guts, but there was a little better understanding of what went down and why that was called. I don't see it as a negative at all. I think it's just, I'm not sure it wouldn't be a positive.
Right. And obviously I'm with you on thinking that the officials, in particular in this case, need to be brought in to explain their side of it. David, I would assume that if that happened, the official who made the call would probably see the play again before commenting on it.
I think it would be fair, kind of just what we did in that scenario, just him walking through the replay of the play. And I think as a coach, Watson, would you like to see something like that?
I don't know what you mean.
Like if I sat there if I was the official who made the call in that scenario and I walked you through the process of why I called the foul, would that help a little bit in explaining things to your team, to your fan base?
I think all that's taken care of, David, on the field. I already know why a person called what he called, because he and I have confronted each other. He's explained it. I said, you're crazy as the Dickens, and you go on. But I already knew that. Yeah. I just think that after a game, it's not a personal thing at all. Most of the time, officials are some of my best friends in the world till this day, and some that have called my games. But during that time, it's not the coach getting a better feel. He already has gotten it. He's already been told, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. This is what went down on the play. And I'd say, look up there at the board. I've even had them turn at the board with me and say, but right there, you see his hand on his back right there with that? That is a foul. So it's already been discussed with the coach most of the time. I watched the guy from Creighton yesterday. He raised hell about it. But when it was over, George, he took up for him.
You know, he did.
100% took up for the official, and that's the way I think there's a lot more respect with coaches and officials than the fans think there is. We may get on them during a game, but very few will make statements after a game. And I thought, whatever the coach's name at Creighton is, I thought he handled that first class. We deserved to lose the game.
Agree.
San Diego State outplayed us throughout the game. There were probably 80 other plays in that game that we could have done differently to have won that game. So he didn't go there whatsoever. And I do think there's a lot more respect, even though during that time they are flat getting after each other. And I think that's a little misconception with the fan and the coach. And I remember when I retired at Tennessee Tech, the OVC officials had me come in at their final meeting and speak to them all. And that was really neat for me to get to do that, because I've yelled at every one of them. And yet I was able to go in and speak and have a good night with every one of them. So, no, I'm an official person. I think they're human beings. They're going to make mistakes. But I've always said in games, I made more than they did. They didn't miss near as many calls as some of the calls I made throughout that game. And I truly believe that. But for the game's sake, I think it would be good that they go in like I do with my players and have to sit there and answer good and bads. You know, it's not always a bad call when a game's over. Officials can have a really good game. Then they get to go in and be heroes. Say, yeah, I think we kept this one really under control and it was played fair and clean all the way through. And so it isn't always a bad thing when the officials have to go talk.
By the way, after this next break, we'll get into Plaster Bet of the Day, where Watson has been 100% correct that I have taken the gas. That gaudy record of mine is gaudy no more, that all of you will see. Now, to get out of the toy department of life for just a moment, this has been a hard show to do because we've been watching on a television to my left what went on earlier today at Covenant School, where 3 young kids, 3 adults, and the actual shooter have all died in a senseless, pitiful, pathetic tragedy that should never happen, but keeps happening in our country more and more Billy, you may have had the ability to see better than I did. It looked like the latest stuff was the police centering now on the home of the shooter.
Yeah, there was footage of the home of the shooter. I think 7 now is the death count there. So, hopefully that doesn't go up, but it looks like there were a lot involved, and we're continuing to find out more and more about this story.
Are they worried at this point that someone else is involved in this?
I think that's where they're sort of looking now. They're starting to gather a lot of that information and figure out who all was involved. Because that's what matters. So yeah, it feels like everything's on the table right now, and that we're going to continue to find out a lot, probably before maybe the end of the day. But yeah.
Well, whatever the case, before we go to the break, this show wants to send out its thoughts and prayers to everybody involved at that school, to the victims' families. I don't pretend to be able to imagine what you're going through, but know that we care and know that we're thinking about you. We'll get a good laugh probably after the break when you see my record, but please know that on this story, man, our thoughts and prayers are going out. This is really close to home. This is 3 miles from where I live. Without knowing it, I drove by there today near the time all this went on, and it is just an absolute stunner to watch what is going on. I don't know what else to say.
You said it good, George. You don't have to say. You can see it in your eyes, and it's just a sad day. All we can do is just pray for those families in every way that we can, and hope we all can do whatever to help them. Anything we can all do to help them.
We'll go to the break. We'll wrap the show up when we come back.
This is my buddy and former Nashville Sounds PA announcer Eric Berner. I always laughed in the old days at Greer Stadium when I would walk in, Eric would immediately play my favorite song, Van Halen's Jump. But then I learned he actually has a real job with Rockcastle Wealth Advisors.
Yeah, George, that's what I do. I help people in the pursuit of making their money live as long as they do. Everybody's situation is different, so I use a customized and individualized, personalized approach to the person I'm working with. Old 401ks, retirement planning, insurance planning, inheritance planning. Those are things that people like to get some more information about.
One of the things I find is people don't even know where to start, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, so I can usually help people with an initial phone call or meeting that is a no charge and no obligation.
And I'll bet you have a phone number and a website.
I do, George. They can call me at 615-235-1058 or rockcastlewealth.com or Eric at rockcastlewealth.com.
Family owned and operated for more than 2 decades, Alaco Fine Wood Floors is Nashville and Middle Tennessee's choice for premium quality hardwood floors. Since 1995, Jimmy Alaco and his army of employees have embodied the approach of taking pride in one's craft and providing superior customer service, growing from a one-man shop to a team of 23 professionals who share the founder's passion for quality craftsmanship and customer satisfaction. If you are interested in contacting them, you can find their headquarters at 2505 Winford Avenue in Berry Hill, or give them a call at 615-356-0303. Again, that's 615-356-0303, or log on to alacofinewoodfloors.com. Alaco Fine Wood Floors, serving Middle Tennessee's hardwood flooring needs since 1995.
Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look.
Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry. at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100.
Final segment on this Reaction Monday show, the George Plaster Show. It's time for Plaster's Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law, the best in the business. They are lawyers you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000 or log on to their website. That's bartdurham.com. All right, let's check out what happened over the weekend. I guess we're calling it March Carnage over the weekend as opposed to March Madness for George. 145 and 145. So you're still at 500. UConn was the only winner.
The only winner
of the weekend. Bama and Texas both lost. Princeton and K-State lost. The bets lost.
Wait a minute. Who did Texas play?
Xavier.
Texas won.
Right, I'm saying the bet lost.
Oh, Texas won.
But you did a two-team teaser. You put them together. So both had to hit.
That's a problem.
So you picked Alabama to beat San Diego State.
Give me a 0.5 for you.
Would you like that and make you feel better?
145 and a half.
Well, if you go from like 11 over 500 to this.
All right, if you want to be a half game above 500.
Right, and Watson gets a good laugh out of this because he predicted this before it ever started, that I would get crushed in the tournament. Watson, from what I hear, Vegas has made off like a bandit during this tournament.
Don't they always?
I think even more so than think about the schools that today are in the Final Four. FAU. The truth of it is, a bunch of you out there never even knew FAU had a team until probably mid-January. San Diego State. They've always played good defense, but there's never been much more about them. One of those two teams is going to play next Monday night for the national title.
Yeah.
UConn's been there. They're the consistent. They've been there and they've won. Miami, it's the only thing I got right. I thought they were a dark horse that needed to be paid attention to. It's the only thing I have gotten right. So, Watson, we have no college activity tonight. And so pathetically, we go to a pro game, and here it is. I'm taking Indiana -1 at home against Dallas. Is Luka Duka playing tonight, or is he? Did he have the?
I thought he got suspended for a game.
But I thought it got rescinded.
Playing. I want to say he's not playing. I can check on that though.
Yeah,
and they've lost 4 straight.
Right. So you'll want to watch that tonight on NBA television.
I'll be watching the girls. Did you all see that young lady from
Iowa?
What she did?
Goodness.
I watched the whole game. She's unbelievable.
She's terrific.
Did you see some of those three-pointers she hit?
Caitlin Clark.
She's
the biggest name in both men's and women's basketball.
I don't know if I've ever seen a performance like that. It's unbelievable. I mean, she hit everything.
What were her numbers, David? 40 points.
40 points, like 16 rebounds, 12 assists.
41 points. She had a 41-point triple-double.
Amazing.
There will be a statue of her in Iowa City soon.
At the half, George, of the game, they had scored 48 points. She'd been responsible for 42 of the 48 points at the half.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that in a basketball game before.
So who plays tonight on the women's side?
South Carolina plays Maryland.
Yeah.
Then there's another.
LSU.
They won last night.
LSU won. I can't remember who the other one is.
It's Virginia Tech and Ohio State, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Do any of you think anybody can beat South Carolina?
No.
It's interesting that Iowa would play them in the semifinal game. So I think Caitlin Clark playing against Aaliyah Boston in South Carolina could be a really good game. I think Iowa could have a chance.
Okay. We'll see what happens. Watson, tomorrow, Tony Basilio and Lee Fowler. Lee not able to be with us today, and really appreciate Kerry Keating. Man, he's a talk show without a signal.
Let him go.
I'm telling you.
Just let him go.
He is a piece of work. We're out of here. See you tomorrow. Pray for these folks involved at Covenant School because, man, they need it. This is a pitiful story. I don't know that we know all of it yet, but I suspect in the next 24 to 48 hours, we probably will. See you then.